So I will talk about speciation in fungi, and in particular in the antherst mud fungi. So these are pathogenic fungi sterilizing certain plants. So the fungus produces its spores in the plasma of pollen in the antherst of the Silenes. So when we think of speciation, usually we think of animals and sometimes hidden here of plants. But I want to show you that fungi, and in particular antherst mud fungi, are great models for studying speciation. And so here you can see a healthy flower, and here a diseased flower. So the ovaries are aborted, and the fungus transforms the female plant in a male plant, producing anthers, but full of spores. And even Darwin became interested in this fungus and in the transformation of the female flower into male with full of spores. And you have here some drawing he made in letters with Linda Baker. So why studying speciation in fungi? So first, there is a huge diversity in fungi, many species, and they diversified despite the lack of sexual selection, of the possibility of habitat choice. So how did they manage to speciate? So another interest for studying speciation in fungi is because of the importance of host shift speciation by fungal pathogens for agriculture and ecosystem. So we know lots of examples of host shift by fungal pathogens, host shift speciation, that caused dramatic disease on crops, and it's occurred most often during the domestication of the crops. And there are more recent host shift speciation. So Michael mentioned the chestnut blight that killed almost all the chestnut trees in North America. And now another example is Phytophthora decimating whole forests in Australia, and obviously all the associated fauna and flora. So host shift speciation are important for emerging diseases. So one way to study speciation is to investigate how does reproductive isolation evolve. So since the seminal work by Coyne and Orr on Drosophila, they show that prezygotic isolation increases gradually in allopatry, and that prezygotic isolation is much stronger between sympatric taxa than allopatric taxa. So we wanted to see whether we could obtain the same pattern in fungi. So we first gathered data in the literature on prezygotic reproductive isolation in mushrooms. So this is the Basidiomycetes, one of the main groups of fungi. And we found an increase of prezygotic reproductive isolation with genetic distance, and a drastic difference between sympatry and allopatry, with much stronger isolation in sympatry than in allopatry. And even within species, we can find some reproductive character displacements with higher prezygotic isolation between sympatric population than between allopatric population, and for instance in these two fungi. But we also looked at the Ascomycetes, another important group of fungi, and we found a very, very different pattern with no difference between allopatry and sympatry. And so even in sympatry, many species were completely interfertile, could produce hybrids, variables, and fertile. And so the Ascomycetes are more like, include many fungal pathogens like the botrytis producing the grey mold on grapes, but also the noble warts that some of you experienced last night, and lots of disease on crops and on natural plants. So why is that the Ascomycetes doesn't seem to show high reproductive isolation in sympatry? So one explanation is because of a magic trait. So the Ascomycetes, they disperse, they cannot choose the host where they will land, but so they experience selection before the meeting within host. So they can disperse to another host, but then they have to grow within the host, infect the host, and they mate with other fungi that have also infected the same host. So the very same gene that controls host adaptation also controls the probability of mating So they can mate only with the other individuals that are exactly the same host adaptation genes. So this is the definition of the magic trait. And I would like to stress that it is different than what is studied in the phytophagous insects. So they mate on their host, but they need a gene most often to choose their host. So you still need a linkage disequilibrium between the host choice gene and the host adaptation genes. This is not really a magic trait because you still need a linkage disequilibrium. It's not exactly the same genes that control adaptation and the probability of mating. But it is the case in the ascomycete fungi. So the ascomycete fungi have other characteristics that make them conducive to ecological speciation, in particular by host shift. So there is a pleiotropy between host adaptation and mating probability, but also there is a very, very strong selection on single genes. So fungi interact with their plants in a gene-for-gene manner. This means that there is a protein, there are resistant protein in plants that are designed that have evolved to recognize some molecule in fungi, and when they recognize the fungi, that just blocks infection by making hypersensibility reaction where the cells die around the fungus. So if the plant recognizes the fungus just cannot infect the plant. But if the fungus evolves and changes the protein, it can infect the plant, and then it has a high fitness. So the fitness on a single gene with two alleles is really 0 or high. So we have a very strong selection on a single gene. And also the fungi produce billions and billions of spores. So we have here a wheat field disease with rust, and you have all the spores of the rust coming out there. And so this huge quantity of spore give opportunities for mutations, for new mutation, for infecting new hosts, and they also allow for a high selection load that we have because of the strong selection. And I would like to outline an example. It's an emerging disease on a resistant variety of apple. So a fungus, Venturaria inequalis, produces the disease called apple scab. And so the agronomists created a resistant variety of apple that stayed resistant for 40 years. And 40 years ago, a new population became adapted to this new host, the resistant host. And so there was an emerging population on the resistant plants, and they could not at all infect their old host. And the population of fungus on this susceptible apple tree could not infect this apple tree. So there was no cross-inoculation possible, even in the same orchard, and there was no mating possible because they mate within their host. And so we had instant speciation, more or less, with a single gene, so the magic trait. And so for 10 years now, we have followed the population, and they remain highly differentiated. They are completely interfertile in vitro, but they're just in the same orchard, they don't mate because they cannot cross-infect their host. And so, and this is because they mate within the host. And now I would like to speak a bit about the antherthmid fungi. So these are basidiomycetes, and they are this odd point here with a very low prezygotic isolation in sympatry. So these fungi produce their spores in the anthers. They are dispersed by the pollinators, so they fall on healthy plants, and then the spore germinates. The spore is diploid, and it undergoes a meiosis, and then there is two mating types, A1 and A2, and you have conjugation right away after the meiosis between A1 and A2 sporidia, and then dikaryotic hyphae are produced, and they infect the plants, the meristems, and the next season the flowers are diseased. And there is no magic thread here because the fungus mates before infecting the plants. So there is no selection before mating within the host. And so anthers-mud disease is found in a wide variety of Silene and Saponaria and Dianthus species all around the world. And in fact, on each host species, you have a sibling species of Microbotrium. They are separate species. We have shown that they are genetically highly differentiated, very host-specific, but they have largely overlapping geographical ranges. And there is a strong host specialization, and a strong disruptive selection. When we try to inoculate in the lab, in the greenhouse, one fungus, so we took these plants and their respective anthers-mud fungi, and we cross-inoculated all against all. And you can see here the percentage of diseased plants as a function of the genetic distance between the host of origin of the fungus and the inoculated host. And so these decrease sharply, and so the fungus cannot well infect distant plants. And there has been many host shift speciation. Here you have the phylogeny of the plants, and here the phylogeny of the Microbotrium, and there has been lots of host shift speciation. And so we wanted to know, so we have many species, many are in sympatry. So what are the barriers to gene flow, and what is the history of gene flow? So there is some kind of ecological isolation because the habitat of the plant and the pollinators are quite different. So the Dianthus, for instance, live in mountains. These Silene dioica live near the forest in humid habitats. Silene latifolia lives in more open and disturbed habitats. But still, they can found sometimes in sympatry, and they have really overlapping ranges, and the pollinator, they are shared pollinators. So we wanted to see whether there was some kind of intrinsic reproductive isolation. So we did some crosses between different Microbotrium species adapted to different plant species, and we looked at the viability and fertility of hybrids. So what we can do, we can cultivate in vitro the sporidia that are the gametes of the fungus that are produced just after the meiosis, and we can look under the microscope whether they conjugate, whether they would want to mate when we did so. So we isolate, we can isolate one mating type from one species and mix with the other mating type from the other species, and we looked whether they would conjugate. And what we find is there is absolutely, so even between very distant species, they would conjugate as readily as within the same species. So there is no assortative mating, no mate choice at all, even between very distant species. And then we looked at the ability to grow the hyphae at this stage. So we crossed A1 sporidia from one species and A2 sporidia from the other species and look at the proportion of hyphae that we could see under the microscope. And here we could find that there was an inability to produce hyphae, so reproductive isolation, the kind of post-zygotic isolation, increased with genetic distance between the species. And then we looked at the whole life cycle. So we chose, again, A1 mating time from one species and A2 mating time from the other species, and mixed them with seeds in a petri dishes and then transferred them in the greenhouse. And then we looked whether the plants were diseased or not by the hybrids. And there was an even stronger post-zygotic isolation. So we did that on these two host species. And each time we had a strong post-zygotic isolation increasing with genetic distance between the species. And also the hybrids, they produce abnormal symptoms. So some produces spore in the anthers, but also they let the plant produce some pollen. They were not completely able to prevent the production of pollen. And some even produce spores within the ovules instead of the anthers. And then we looked at further in the life cycle, so the hybrid sterility, and then we let the hybrid self on plants to produce F2 and looked at the hybrid inviability. And here again, the hybrid sterility increased with genetic distance between the species, but still it remained low between close species. And we looked at whether this sterility could be due to karyotypic incompatibility, because fungi have huge karyotypic variability, and they have small chromosomes, so we can make the chromosome migrate on gels. And you have here two different species of Microbotium, quite close, and they have different sizes for their chromosomes. And when we looked at the genome content of the gametes, so these are two ways of looking at the genome content of the gametes, and we find an increase of the genome content of the gametes with genetic distance between the parents, which means that the only viable gamete we could recover, they are more chromosomes than usual, so probably the meiosis just didn't went well, and they took more chromosomes because they were not paired very well. And then we looked at the F2 inviability, and it was even greater than the F1 inviability. So even for the pair of species for which we could have F1, the F2 were completely inviable. They produced just no diseases. And then we looked at the genome content, the genetic makeup of the F2 hybrids. So we genotyped microsatellites discriminating between the fungal parent species, and we looked whether the F2 hybrids had alpha of the two parents or had only the alleles corresponding to the fungus that usually infect the plants where we inoculated the F2. This is what we found. So this is the interspecific cross, the intraspecific cross, close interspecific cross, and a more distant interspecific cross. And in gray, you have the heterozygous microcytes. In black, the homozygous ones corresponding to the alleles of the fungus that usually infect this plant. And in white, the homozygous loci carrying alleles not corresponding to the inoculated plant. And for the intraspecific cross, all loci remain heterozygous. So this may seem surprising, but it's because the fungus is automictic, and so it retains heterozygosity more than usual. And for interspecific cross, the two closest species, there was some return to homozygosity, and even more for the more distant interspecific cross. And here, almost all loci were homozygous again, and with the alleles corresponding to the inoculated plant. So there is probably a strong selection on many genes for host adaptation, and maybe also for Dobzhansky-Müller incompatibilities. So we found no intrinsic associative mating. We found postzygotic isolation increasing with genetic distance between the species, but remaining low between close species. So this was quite surprising for sympatric species and was more consistent with what we expect for allopatric pattern. So maybe this is a recent secondary contact, or maybe selfing has an important role, because the fungus undergoes mainly selfing by automixis. This means that there is mating between the same tetrad. So here you have the teliospore germinating, and usually there is mating right away between product of the same meiosis. And so maybe this is a kind of reproductive isolation sufficient enough to prevent hybridization in nature. So we wanted to look at natural population and estimate the selfing rate, the hybrid frequency, and the history of gene flow. And we chose these two species. So both the plant species and the fungal species are sister species that can hybrid that can hybridize quite easily in the lab and are not that sterile interstellar. So we sampled some population in Europe on the two species, and we genotype with microsat and anonymous DNA fragments, non-coding. So we run an instruct analysis. This is kind of just similar to structure, but it estimates both the selfing rates and the affinement to the different clusters. And so what we found that it's two main clusters, one corresponding to the genotype collected on this plant, and the other corresponding to the genotype on this plant, so the two species. But we found some what we call stragglers, so some individual from these species found on the other plant species and the other way around. So there are some host shift temporarily. And we found also some hybrids, but at low frequency. So the individual assigned partly to one cluster and partly to the other cluster. And we found very high selfing rates. And so we use the IMA model, isolation with migration, to estimate the degree of gene flow and the history of gene flow. And we estimated a divergence date around this age. And we found a low level of gene flow, but only from one species to the other, to the red species to the white species, but some low gene flow. And it was very interesting that, in fact, the gene flow was concentrated on a recent branch, meaning that it was only recent gene flow. And we found a null probability of gene flow at the time of divergence and really increasing just recently in time. So we found a low frequency of hybrids and the gene flow increased recently. So it looks really like a secondary contact. So maybe by range expansion of the plant species, or maybe it's due to disturbed habitat, because the sympatric population where we found both plant species and both microbiome species were disturbed habitats. So maybe they were ecologically separated enough for long, and then now with the disturbance of habitats, they can be found together and hybridize. Or maybe the barriers to gene flow were sufficient without assortative mating with the high selfing rate and the ecological isolation by habitats. Or maybe it was really divergence in allopatry and then secondary contact. And anyway, there is an evolution of postzygotic reproductive isolation, both by karyotype variability between the species and probably also by the gene responsible for host adaptation and Dobzhansky-Müller incompatibilities. This is something we want to study further now. And so we looked for the genes of speciation or host adaptation or both. And so we sequenced IST libraries in 4 microbiome species adapted to different hosts, and we looked for the genes under positive selection, so with a high number of changes in amino acids. And we found 42 genes under positive selection, and they were involved in functions quite interesting in relation to the host adaptation, so in nutrient uptake, in hyphae growth, in stress response, in transmembrane proteins, and some were secreted proteins that are thought to be involved to the interaction with the host or for expression regulation. And so I hope I convinced you that fungi and half-smooth fungi are a great model for studying speciation. And I want to thank the many PhD students and postdocs and collaborators who contributed. Thank you.
maybe whether you can comment on these recent results that people are talking about snowball effect. In fact, the DMI accumulation is due to interlocus interactions. And so with increasing genetic distance between the pairs, you would expect more and more exponential increase of number of species divergence increases. So rather than the only economic side, can you, with respect to the results, can you comment on whether you also see snowball effect number of loci
Sorry, I'm not sure to have understand. So, are you talking about the shape of the curves, or why it's not exponential, for instance?
So you're showing a relationship between genetic distance and what I'm curious is actually from the loci.
Yeah.
What do you actually get at?
Yeah. Indeed, this is something we don't know yet, and we want to do. So estimate the number of loci involved in incompatibility. So we want to really increase the number of loci from. So doing this, but we had here only 30 microsats, but we want to do that at the genome scale and looked at the number of genes that would return to homozygosity and look whether they are host adaptation, plant or Dobzhansky Muller incompatibilities, and look at the number of incompatibilities as a function of genetic distance exactly, yeah. But I don't know yet, sorry.
More questions? So it seems like a lot of these species are relatively old. But then you have that very short part about this, in this one orchard, you appear to have 40 generations of the origin of the new species, essentially. I was wondering if you could expand on that. Sounds really cool, totally on board. But I just want to, if you could explain a little bit more how you can be sure, for instance, that there was no standard genetic variation that was already present, for instance, that the new form was really in low frequency in some places.
Yeah, for the apple scab disease, so these species are very old, but as I said, there is no magic thread here. So the situation is very different from the Ascomycete fungi causing disease. And in this case, we have genotyped with microsats, the two populations, and the emerging population is really a subset, a small subset of the alleles of the ancient population, with only one allele at each microsat that is included in the other population. So we have no reason to think it could come from another place, but yeah, why not? Yeah.
So have you tried to see whether or not the last versions that you can see would be resistant to time frame, or which possibly
Yeah, I think it's for 10 or 40 years, it's very difficult with microsat to estimate such divergence time and discriminate between 40 years or 100 years or 200 years. So is this your question? Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems pretty cool.
Yeah.
I want to read that soon. Time for more questions? Other questions down there?
In fact,
do you know how they transmitted by pollinators? There was some connection between plant species sharing pollinators and whether there's a host shape between the species.
sorry, can you again?
Do you know how the plant fungi are transmitted?
Yeah.
Transmitted by pollinators of plant species?
So they are transmitted by the pollinators, and for instance, between the two species, Latifolia and Dioica. So these two plant species hybridize also in the lab, but not that much in nature, and they share the same pollinator, and obviously they share the same habitat, and it's really cool that we find exactly the same result. Well, not we, but other. They found for the plants quite exactly the same thing with an asymmetric gene flow from the same species to the same species in the plant, and also only recently, but much older, in fact.
I have a question related to my question. Actually, you mentioned about the gene flow due to the reason the secondary content. But if I remember right, the host, Salini Tyrosine, Salini Folium, you also have secondary content reason.
Yeah.
Any relation to this depends?
Sure. Yeah, of course. That's big.
The time and the place occurred, that critical, the association between these two things, the secondary content, the host.
Yeah. Well, it's necessarily linked. Yeah, yeah. When I spoke about disturbance and sympatry in disturbed habitat, it's for the plants, and we found also the sympatry for the fungus necessarily.